Hi guys! Today we'll be recapping a story called Let Me Die in Peace. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot. Enjoy! A dramatic scene unfolds in the Imperial Palace as Ophelia, a stunning empress with silver hair and purple eyes, sits on her throne, her head resting on her palm. She stares sluggishly at her half-brother, who has tanned skin and emerald eyes, and his entire legion of knights surround her. Behind him stands a blue-haired man who begins to accuse her of crimes such as poisoning her brother's mother, Empress Sitara, and attempting to conceal the Emperor's will. As soon as they announce that Ophelia's sentence is death, she yawns as if she knows it's coming and wants it to be over immediately. And then they start arrow bombing her mercilessly. Okay, it was intense. Ophelia struggles for air as she awakens from her death, still feeling the anguish where the final arrow struck her. She cries helplessly, longing to die, but coming back to life is nothing new for her. This is her fourth death, and she has no idea when it will stop. Our poor girl has transmigrated to the novel, The Crown Prince's Return. But the worst part is that she has entered the body of the story's villain, Princess Ophelia. In the novel, Ophelia locks up her half-brother, Prince Ewout, in a tower and murders his mother. To sum up the story, the main character, Prince, triumphed over overwhelming odds to become emperor after he not only defeated Ophelia, but also ensured her horrible end. However, with like any transmigration story, Ophelia's ending doesn't frighten her at first, given that she can just ensure that she's a different and better version of the so-called villain. So, during her first life as Ophelia, she became Ewout's caring sister, freed him from the tower, and despite the prince's young age, gave the throne up to him. She then had a blissful marriage with the future head of the Magic Tower, Kirsten Erhard, as a cherry on top. But even after altering the story, becoming the villainess is etched into her character because her husband, whom she thought was simply an extra in the novel, isn't as innocent as he appears. Kirsten wants her to be the Empress and has already made arrangements behind her back, leading her to become a traitor and put to death by beheading. She assumed that was it for her life as Ophelia, but then she awakens 10 years before her execution. She can't believe her happy ending was ruined because her husband was secretly plotting treason. She trembles and believes she has returned to life because she did not follow the original novel. So she has no choice except to act like the villainous Ophelia in order to ensure she stops coming back to life. However, regardless of how wicked she gets in her succeeding lives, Iwal always ensures that she has a gruesome death. Even though she knows that a villain like her will inevitably die, now in her 5th lifetime, she is determined to find a means to end her life as painlessly as possible. That's just sad. Rather than finding a way to live, she simply wants her death to be peaceful. She has decided not to fear her 5th life, for she intends to die without pain. But this is easier said than done because Iwal constantly wants to give her the most brutal death. While planning her life, she can't help but wish Sitara was still alive. She is Ewout's mother and a maid from a northern village chosen by her father, the Emperor. Ophelia has returned to life 5 times now, but each time it has been after she killed Sitara. It would have been nice if she woke up earlier and stopped her villainous character from murdering Sitara. Then Ewout wouldn't detest her as much. Whoever is orchestrating her revival has our girl suffering in their sights. The fact that her servants rush to her side as she sighs and begs for forgiveness just serves to highlight how wicked her character is. She is a villain who wasn't created to die gently, which makes her life difficult. Inside the palace, Ophelia, still unclear of the timeline she is in, asks her personal maid how long it has been since Ewout was imprisoned and discovers that it has been exactly a year. Ophelia can only think of one way to die gently, and that is to convince Ewout to kill her without mercy. I assume you guys have already considered the possibility that Ophelia could murder Ewout, haven't you? But since he's the protagonist, he has this perk that makes him invincible. Even now, Ophelia is alarmed that the young Ewout hasn't caught a cold in a constrained tower, implying that he has suffered greatly yet is unable to die. Just thinking about how much the kid hates her now makes her tremble with fear, and she doubts she will ever die peacefully. Speaking of the main character, Ewout Lidania, the Emperor's only son, is currently gazing out his small window. Aw, he's just a cutie patootie here. It'd be great to watch him and Ophelia get close. Anyway, he wishes to leave the tower and enjoy the sunshine, but this is impossible, so his loyal maid, Shauna, can't help but cry as she watches him. After that, Shauna starts ranting at the young prince, saying things like, "Remember who locked you up and killed your mother? Ophelia." I have a feeling this maid will make it even harder for Ewout to warm up to his sister. Ewout frantically hushes his maid, concerned that someone could hear them, but it's too late. The little one, Ophelia, is outside the door and hears everything. Shauna refuses to stop and urges Ewout to stay alive until the Emperor saves him. But with a smile, Ophelia enters, dispelling Shauna's claims that the ailing Emperor will undoubtedly not be able to save Ewout. In her fear that the princess has come to harm Ewout, Shauna blocks her quickly, prompting Ophelia to subconsciously release her wicked aura as a warning that Shauna should brace herself for certain death. Ophelia then quickly shuts her mouth. She then looks very hurt seeing Ewout again. Since her first life, Ewout was a sweet brother to her. But in the end, he ordered her death, making her believe that the lovely side of him was all fake. She stops thinking and pushes Ewout to decide whether he wants to leave the tower. The boy gets the creeps and suspects that Ophelia plans to kill him. Despite being young, he understands that Ophelia may have a purpose for wanting to release him and fears that she might put him to death on the battlefield. Ophelia shows no mercy as she mocks him, reminding him that the Emperor will never come to his rescue. Even worse, she laughs at him, suggesting that their father is so unwell that he may soon die and join his mother. This obviously frightens the little child, but she persists and points out to him that she is the only one who can let him out. She taps him on the head and demands that he decide whether to wait for the Emperor or to join her out of the tower, making Ewout seem both teary and determined. Ophelia smiles as she wants to see Ewout's eyes filled with hatred and terror for her since, after so many lifetimes, she realizes that it's not only her husband, Kirsten, who ruined her first life, but also herself. In the novel, Ophelia confronts Sitara, claiming that the Emperor has no affection for her and warning her that she intends to eliminate anyone who stands in the way of the throne. Sitara, who appears powerless, kneels before her, offering to give up her life as long as Ophelia does not kill her son Ewout. After Sitara kissed Ophelia's hand to seal their agreement, news began to circulate that Sitara had poisoned herself. So when she transmigrated and suddenly appeared to be a nice and caring sister, she believes Ewout thinks that it was all a scheme. Okay, so she figures Ewout simply pretended to forgive her, and now she intends to maintain her villainous persona while remaining likable, so future Ewout will not brutally kill her. Ophelia then leaves the room open, not pressuring Ewout or acting kind to him, but giving him the option to follow her. She walks out, and after a little moment, a small hand holds onto her dress. Ewout, who does not want to be locked up anymore. Ophelia smiles as her plan works, and Ewout overcomes his fear of her. Shauna then cries that following Ophelia is dangerous, but the little boy has had enough of being locked up, and either way, he would be in danger, so why not get out? Instead of trying to console her younger brother, she criticizes him, calling him a small and dirty little kitten. This makes Ewout so embarrassed that he stops crying. It was such a sweet exchange. The servants take Ewout for a hot bath infused with lavender, lemons, and herbs, and they apply 42 different kinds of bombs to him. They then prepared him in a bright-colored fit they referred to as basic clothing, causing the adorable wet kitty to stand terrified. But thankfully, Shauna arrived with the perfect attire for him, making him appear so dashing. Ewout is astounded by how beautiful the garden is and is unable to control his delight, prompting Shauna to warn him that Ophelia is dangerous and that he should not relax his guard. Ophelia invites him to brunch with her, so when he notices the server shake as she pours the tea that accidentally splatters on the table and witnesses Ophelia's reaction, he realizes Shauna is correct. He should not be persuaded since Ophelia has a tendency to turn wicked. Though Ophelia thinks she can relax for the day since she was able to get Ewout out of the tower, their silence makes the situation awkward and uncomfortable for both of them. She can't believe she's eating with him and decides not to keep quiet, telling him that they will be having lunch together from that day onwards, which surprises Ewout. And he reacts even more when she refers to him as a prince, which surprises the maids, who believes this is a sign that the world is ending. Ewout is at a loss for words as Ophelia continues to tell him of every subject he needs to study, and he is even more weighed down when she adds that he needs to learn swordsmanship. Ewout is concerned and scared because he suspects she has intentions to murder him by drowning him in studies. He is even more puzzled when she smiles sweetly and compliments his looks while encouraging him to eat his meal. She then informs him that he will be residing in the Rose Palace, the same one where his mother Sitara once lived. Ophelia asks him how many maids he needs because it will be difficult for Shauna to manage the massive palace alone. But their conversation is cut short when her servant reports to her of Sir Kirsten's arrival. Just hearing his name makes her lose her composure, knocks her utensils to the ground, and prompts her to tell him to leave. Ewout is so surprised by her reactions, but our girl here can't help being so scared, as Kirsten Kalaman Erhard is the person she married in her first life. Despite the fact that he was only an extra in the novel, she believes they were meant to be, at least until he committed treason without her knowledge, causing her death. So she resolves to stay away from him at all costs in this life. Ewout can't help but ask her because she seems terrified, as if she's seen a ghost, and he wonders if Kirsten is an evil person. Ophelia calms down and explains that Kirsten is not a bad person, but rather an excellent mage. She goes on to say that Kirsten is now being branded as the next Magic Tower Master because the previous one has gone missing. He was picked not because there was no other choice, but because he possesses limitless mana in a world where magic and mages are becoming extinct. If you ask me, this guy doesn't sound like an extra. Ophelia maintains her cool and directs Ewout's attention to the food. But in reality, she is sweating so much as she doesn't want Ewout to remember that Kirsten came to see her today, since if Kirsten causes trouble in the future, Ewout may suspect her as well. However, her smart little brother keeps asking about Kirsten and trying to figure out why he visited, which makes her shudder. Ewout notices this and begins rambling that the question is not meant to ridicule her because the mage is more powerful than her, but rather because he is simply interested, having only read about mages in history books. Ewout is startled because Ophelia's vicious red eyes are staring at him, and he realizes that he wasn't supposed to be reading. Since Ophelia forbade him from having books while he was in confinement, she believes that Shauna disobeyed her by giving him books. Ewout trembles, and his eyes are filled with terror as he believes Shauna will die as a result of his chatty mouth. But he is taken aback when Ophelia simply smiles and stands up to visit the Emperor while letting him roam around his new palace. This doesn't make sense to Ewout, so he stutters in panic and apologizes, but he doesn't know what else to say. So Ophelia cuts him off and gives him a chilly glare, wondering if he's sorry for defying her orders. This leads a little child to freeze in fear while Ophelia grins at him as if she was simply teasing him. Even though he has no idea why Ophelia let it slip, he and the maids can't help but breathe a sigh of relief when she leaves. Well, everyone, you're not the only one who feels relieved. Our poor girl also takes out her stress while no one is looking. She's so stressed out from answering Ewout's questions that it might actually kill her. But because of how anxious Ewout is over the books, she is sure he's already forgotten about Kirsten. Just then, a servant runs to her and hands her a little teddy bear, or so she thinks. Because after holding it, it becomes so large that she can't even hug it with both hands. The sender is none other than Kirsten, and to make matters worse, he intends to come back. So Ophelia has no choice but to instruct her servants to inform Kirsten that she is away since she never plans to see him, ever. Here she stands in front of her father's chamber, a place she has detested visiting for as long as she can remember. She tiptoes to his desk, placing the documents there, and wants to escape immediately, but this is not her day because the Emperor is awake. The Emperor, Princess Lidania, sits down and clearly dislikes her. He generally blames Ophelia for everything, and she is now waiting to hear about his concerns for the day. It appears the Emperor is already aware that she released Ewout from prison. This makes her wonder who reports to him, but instead of answering her inquiry, the Emperor reminds her that he will crown Ewout Emperor and never her. Ophelia stands there bored since she already knows the Emperor will die this year and leaves a will indicating that the throne belongs to Ewout. The Emperor's attitude toward her remained unchanged to the end, and he always saw her as ruthless and cruel. She then looks at him as he trembles in rage while holding a cup of water, expecting it to be splashed all over her, as it has always been in every lifetime. From the lifetime she died from an arrow to the time she was burned at the stake, even when Ewout and Kirsten were by her side, the Emperor never lets her go without throwing her water. So she braces herself today, but she instinctively avoids the cup, causing the Emperor to become agitated and accuse her, as if he is certain Ophelia would kill Ewout. She responds, reminding her father that he was the one who turned his back on Sitara first, and that it is ridiculous that he is now acting so concerned about Ewout. But she still assures him that his precious son will not die, but rather that his loathed daughter will die in his son's hands. The Emperor screams at her, believing she's going insane, and before she leaves his room, she delivers him a hint that Iwal will become Emperor when he turns 20. Now that she is outside the chamber, she instructs the head maid to check on him because the Emperor is coughing so much. As she tries her hardest to hold back her tears and steady her voice, she can't help but feel sick to her stomach at the Emperor accusing his own daughter. Next, Ophelia orders the head maid to investigate who has been informing the Emperor, or she will be the one to die. The following morning, Ophelia receives word that no one wants to be Ewout's tutor, as Ewout sits in the corner listening to this. As his big sister, she knows that this hurts his feelings, so she assures him in a rather uncomforting tone that it isn't his fault. The kitten sits quietly, studying on his own, but he is taken aback when Ophelia offers to help him with his studies for the time being, thinking that he is being a nuisance. She grumbles and right away reminds him that he is the prince and tutoring him is far preferable to seeing the Emperor. When these siblings share glances, they begin to feel awkward, leading Ophelia to realize she has acted too friendly. However, what's done is done, so she keeps a stern look and allows him to leave her office. Before leaving, Iwal can't help but remember what he witnessed yesterday on his way to his room alone. He couldn't hear what they were saying, but he spotted Ophelia crying, which has troubled him till now. He is so disturbed that he decides to ask her why she allowed him out of the tower and didn't kill him. A blunt question that surprised Ophelia, but ends with her stating that he is someone so valuable that he must do something for her in the future. That night, Amy comes to her door with a flower that only grows in the north that glows, and Ophelia finds out that it was another gift from Kirsten. Kirsten presented her with her nightgown, bedding, and now flowers. Even the massive teddy bear is in her room, which Ophelia believes is the reason Amy has softened towards her and remains to smile so brightly. Not only that, but Amy informs Ophelia that Kirsten intends to pay her another visit, which gives her goosebumps, forcing her to act before something terrible happens. This is now Amy's point of view, and welcome to her adventure into the afterlife. She smiles so nervously as she mentally writes her diary because, in contrast to her typical day as a maid for the most brutal person in the world, tonight she truly believes she's going to die. Not only are they outside the palace now, but they are now in a creepy area. Amy watches as Ophelia trips and stresses that her father's family would perish if the princess had her toenails damaged. Ripped her cloak? Means the end of her mother's side. Amy's reasoning for her family's execution is hilarious. The worst part of Amy's night is when Ophelia runs into a man drenched in blood. Hey, Mr. Gorgeous, are you the main male character? Ophelia is looking around as they continue to walk through the alley wrapped in yellow paper, when she accidentally bumps into a firm and smells a fishy man, who is now looking at her as she gets chills from seeing that he is covered in blood. The next thing she knows, she loses her footing and grows frightened that she will suffer a serious injury from the jagged nails and shards of glass that litter the ground. You may be expecting a romantic hand-on-the-back catch, but nope. This guy merely grabs her robe, enough for her not to fall. Amy panics as she holds Ophelia, while the man merely remarks that Ophelia must be a woman looking for men to pleasure her. Amy becomes more scared as the man adds that this is a human trafficking place with yellow posters advertising such services. Looking at how Amy trembles, Ophelia goes over to her and calms her down. The man is surprised because he has never seen an aristocrat console a maid, and he immediately leaves, figuring he scared Ophelia sufficiently to send her home. The man then knocks on a house door, and his younger brother excitedly opens it, anticipating his return home that day. But as he pats his younger brother's head, he pauses because his brother smells the aroma of Ophelia off him, which lingers. Is he an ally or the ML? Meanwhile, Amy is persuading Ophelia to go home, reminding her that the man revealed to them that the location is where people are bought and sold. But Ophelia insists on finding something there. She's actually looking for the Assassin's Guild symbol, a yellow tavern sign that illuminates at night, in order to purchase the man she met a while ago. The man's name is Now, and he was formerly the best assassin before falling into poverty and becoming a guild slave. She believes he's fairly expensive based on his slavery contract, but she is confident that he is worth it because he is a vital character in the original novel and will play an important role in her future plans. Now that Now is kneeling and blindfolded in front of her, Ophelia demands to know why he is covered in bruises because he is now under her care, and seeing him hurt upsets her. She then learns from Now that his bruises are the result of his former master. The guild leader dislikes the fact that a powerful person like her bought him. When Ophelia removes his blindfold, he immediately recognizes her as the woman he met in the alley. Ophelia introduces herself to him, and he is startled to learn that she is the Empire's princess. But he is curious as to why she wants him. Ophelia informs him that she needs him for security, spying, assassination, and other reasons. Hearing the word assassination, he knows that the princess is notorious for her viciousness, and immediately thinks of a person she intends to assassinate, and the prince comes to mind. So he blatantly informs her that if she is planning to assassinate the prince, he cannot carry out orders to murder the imperial family. But to his surprise, Ophelia tells him that he will be using his assassination skills on her instead of the prince. She orders him to kill her with no pain, which confuses Now even more and wants to know her goal. Ophelia already predicted that Now would not follow her easily, so she laid out her plan that his assassination will appear as if she killed herself. She will arrange a place for him outside the nation, and to further entice him, she tosses glittering jewels in front of him. Ophelia figures that he'll be tempted because, with that, his little brother will no longer be impoverished and he can even support his education, making it difficult for him to refuse her offer. She is even willing to burn his slave contract when she hears him declare that he can't follow her commands because the punishment for betraying an imperial family is collective, which means his brother would be executed too. In the original story, Now despised her more than anyone else. He was always Ewout's right-hand man and betrayed her, which is why she tries to keep him close so she can control him. He is also the blue-haired guy who proclaims her death sentence during her 4th life. But now she can't understand him passing up the opportunity to kill her, so she throws more jewels at him. But his response is firm, telling her to simply kill him instead. Her persuasive moment is cut short when Iwal knocks on her door and requests to see her. But she must convince Now to be by her side before he meets Ewout. However, Now is too firm to change his decision, so she decides to change her plans. She leaves her room, sees Ewout, and asks him if he wants to accompany her to the capital festival while putting a note on her room that anyone who comes in will be executed, leaving Now alone inside. The duo begins to make their way to the capital, looking very stunning in their outfit. Well, Ophelia has an objective for attending the festival. She wants to find Nayu, Now's younger brother. In the novel, in order to make ends meet when Now isn't around, Nayu engages in pickpocketing and sells flowers for a gangster group. And our girl intends to hold Nayu hostage, which will force Now to obey her orders. Now that she's so set on finding the child, she realizes that her younger sibling is acting very curious about everything around him, which is understandable given that the kitten spent an entire year confined to a tower. She looks around and discovers a cotton candy store, so she gives Ewout one, wraps her scarf around him, and lets him walk around. However, as an evil sister, Ewout believes this is her way of abandoning him on the streets, but that thought immediately fades when Ophelia beams at him warmly, hoping he will have fun. They are so cute. After little Ewout wanders away with his cotton candy, Ophelia begins her quest for Nayu. Shauna had actually given Ewout some money to spend, so he starts walking about, hoping to find something to buy, when he comes across the kid Ophelia has been looking for, selling beautiful flowers. Ewout stares at the flowers with warmth and quickly returns to Ophelia, clearly shy, as he surprises his sister with the flowers he bought. This is Lil Bro's way of showing his sister how much he appreciates all of her help with him, even if he's too shy to look her in the eye. Aw, the progress in their relationship! Shauna has been warning him about Ophelia's danger, but after seeing her vulnerable and tearful face, he can't help but want to encourage her not to cry again. However, when Ophelia smiles while holding the flower he gave her and begins patting his head, he blushes so much that he's unable to bring up the topic. Such a cutie baby! Ophelia then suggests out of nowhere that Ewout should start learning economics, which confuses her brother. So she refers to the missing scarf around his neck, which is worth 400 gold, and guesses that Ewout traded it for the flowers. Shocked that it has disappeared, Ewout begins to reflect on his day and concludes that Nayu must have taken it. He begins to freak out and explains what happened to Ophelia. He apparently values the scarf very much, as he hurries furiously to the spot where he last saw Nayu, with Ophelia trailing behind him despite her poor stamina. That exhausted face is definitely not one of a villainess. Ewout discovers Nayu in an alley, but is surprised to see the blue-haired child begging for help with injured knees. Ophelia sees a large man standing behind Nayu. She recognizes him as the bully who robs the helpless boy of his money. Although he persuades Nayu into stealing, he retains the entirety of the earnings for himself. This guy needs to learn some lessons. He then grabs Nayu and tells the siblings that the boy stole his scarf, which is obviously a lie given that the scarf belongs to Ewout. And our little prince here heard Nayu begging for help. Despite his fear, Nayu clings to the scarf, refusing to give it to the ugly guy because he believes it will be enough to keep his older brother from having to do risky jobs. Poor kid needs help! Ophelia sees that Ewout is trembling and itching to help Nayu, so she taps his shoulder, and with her signature evil stare, she asks him for his opinion on what she should do. Ewout is surprised, but takes the chance to point out that even though Nayu stole the scarf, it's still wrong to assault a child. And at the snap of Ophelia's finger, royal guards appear like ninjas and begin teaching the old man a lesson. It's good to know that these royal siblings weren't strolling alone. She then comes over to the terrified Nayu and gladly offers him a hand, knowing that, thanks to Ewout, she was able to get hold of Nayu without using force. They are now back in the palace with Nayu resting on Ophelia's lap and now looking at her with rage because his brother is definitely her hostage. She offers now a choice: either carry out her command to kill her or face immediate execution. Not just him, but also his brother Nayu. Now instantly kneels, swearing to be Ophelia's devoted servant and promising to kill her as she wishes. Her scheme has worked yet again, and she has him vow to kill her so cleanly that she will not feel any pain. Everything is going according to her plan, but this is just so sad to hear. They then move to a different room so Nayu does not wake up, and she gives him a rare ring made from mana stones that allows the bearer to change their appearance. Ophelia then continues with her plan, giving now a new identity and the name Philip. As the ring's magical effects take effect on now, he can't help but question why someone as powerful as her would desire to die. This shocks her, but she just stares with dead eyes, as she doesn't have a clear answer she can give. I hope now still looks handsome, though. Princess Ophelia summons the two children and informs Ewout that Nayu will be staying with them at the Imperial Palace, hoping that they will get along. These kids will be competing for her attention, I just know it. She goes on to introduce Philip, Ewout's new servant, who… I was hoping he'd look just as intimidating as his former self now, but instead he comes out as nerdy and slender. I guess he looks much more like a regular servant now. He isn't used to being Philip yet, and he scares Ewout when he speaks to him, so Big Sister has to step in and poke Philip in the side, reminding him that he is now a servant, not an assassin. He then begins the whole thing all over again, this time timidly introducing himself to Ewout and Nayu, as Ophelia watches on triumphantly. Why? Because after the festival and the winter end, the Emperor's death will follow, which marks the beginning of the original novel. Even though she will still die as a villainess, her plan will make her death less brutal, as now will now kill her before Ewout does. That night, Ophelia and Philip are walking in the garden, with Ophelia revealing that she hired his younger brother as Ewout's friend, and that the boy is so meticulous that he drafted a contract ensuring his security and money. This enrages Philip because his brother is still a child and is presently working for a nasty princess, so he threatens Ophelia, which she cuts off and wonders if he would kill her, which she claims is fantastic. Philip is offended by the ease with which she discusses death, but Ophelia is simply relieved that she'll die gently in this life and begins singing when suddenly she steps into something. With lightning speed, Philip protects her and begins to confront whoever's attempting to harm Ophelia. However, he is so baffled when he discovers that there are only rabbits around. A maid immediately approaches them and informs them that while Ophelia was at the festival, Kirsten stopped by and performed a spell in her garden, hoping that her every step would be filled with surprises. Like, literally. Philip is just waiting for her orders and would gladly take down the guy, but she assures him that it is purely a gift. However, she acknowledges that Kirsten will not stop sending her gifts, and she believes that it will soon become the talk of the town, which she suspects is Kirsten's intention. She holds one cute bunny, notices its resemblance to Kirsten, and finds it quite annoying, but then allows the rabbit to give her a peck while wondering why he keeps coming back. Ma'am, what is this? Does she still have feelings for him? I hope not. Despite the fact that it is already late that night, Ophelia decides to visit Erhard's manor, aka her ex-husband's mansion. When they show up unannounced, Kirsten is taken aback to find Ophelia outside. As she stands outside Kirsten's house, she wonders if it was a mistake to come see him, as the people inside run scared that she has shown up. And what about the man she's looking for? Well, he has not yet stepped out of the shower. Being alone, she wonders if she should have just ignored him because she knows he won't give up on his true goal so easily. But she also fears that doing so will only make him angrier. So she tries to remember Kirsten as more than just her ex-husband and the man who will lead the Magic Tower in the future. She recalls when he first pushed her to become Empress and understood that treason was all he ever bothered about, and that he craved more power, which she had previously overlooked because he is adept at concealing his actual goals. Excited that Ophelia is coming to see him, Kirsten dashes inside the room, even though he is still partially damp. She stares at him hesitantly and asks him to dry himself first, noting that he is really handsome. I agree, but let's not relive the past, ma'am. Kirsten merely ignores what she said, telling her that he could have gone to the palace if she had informed him, and he wonders why she shows up so late at night. Like, duh, cunning man, you are the one who keeps bothering our girl. But Ophelia knows that Kirsten is simply trying to provoke her, but sorry, you can no longer have any influence over her. So she surprises Kirsten by revealing that the person she came to meet and ask for a favor is actually his brother Arsad, not him. Kirsten's older brother, Arsad Erhard, is skilled in martial arts, and he gladly accepts Ophelia's request to teach Ewout swordsmanship. Kirsten, on the other hand, looks upset and thinks Ophelia is just teasing him, so he asks her to tell him what she really wants. So, Ophelia clarifies all of this, telling him that's all she came for and is set to go, leaving Kirsten to giggle before giving up and telling her that he would do whatever she commands. However, Ophelia is aware that he would never reveal anything to her, so she intends to keep Kirsten by her side as a means to control him. Yup, keep your enemies closer. As a result, she informs him that the prince also requires a tutor for academic subjects, which he readily agrees. Then she asks him to use his magic to revive and preserve the flowers that Ewout gave her, emphasizing that presents do not have to be lavish to be significant. But this guy is really something, as he disagrees with her, claiming that bigger and rarer gifts are preferable. Definitely hinting that he loves her so much that he would give the throne to her. Kirsten's behavior begins to irritate her, so that night she gives him the order to cease delivering presents to the Imperial Palace. He complies, but now our girl is really anxious. What troubles her the most is that she has no idea what Kirsten's actual objective is until someone interrupts her stream of thought, and she realizes she is at a cabinet meeting. Starting the conversation, Duke Sicart advises Ophelia to put her festival break behind her and concentrate on overseeing the Empire. The Duke is actually her grandfather, so she can't act too villainous towards him. That explains why they have matching purple eyes. They then resume the meeting, and the cabinet begins to discuss the groups of healers who travel around the slums, treating people by opening their bodies and stitching them back up. In the modern world, we name them doctors, so Ophelia sees nothing wrong with having more healers, but her statements have enraged the nobles, who are opposed to healers and want them removed. They believe that any treatment must be carried out at the temple using the priest's divine power. In other words, only the wealthy can receive treatment. Ophelia wants the meeting to end, but it's going on longer than she expected. Meanwhile, the children are now in class, but Ewout is quite uneasy because the teacher in front of him is the reason Ophelia was so shocked when they first ate together. Uh-oh, looks like Lil Bro hasn't forgotten about it. Ewout once confronted Arsad, his swordsmanship teacher, and told him that he suspects Kirsten, an exceptional mage, brainwashed Ophelia, forcing Arsad to disclose that he is that mage's brother. Ewout is becoming increasingly concerned after learning that even Kirsten's brother is now at the Imperial Palace, and he wishes to speak with his sister personally, but he hasn't seen her since their festival break. However, Ewout has beef not only with Kirsten, but also with Nayu. He thinks Nayu is special since Ophelia herself announced his stay at the palace. He begins overthinking during class and concludes that Nayu must be their half-brother, and Ophelia pushes the two of them to compete with the goal of eliminating whichever is weakest. He gets a queasy feeling just thinking about it, so he leaves his class to go outside and get some air. Shauna then finds Ewout and assumes he is skipping class because he does not want to eat lunch with Ophelia, unaware that this is exactly what he wants, lunch with his sister. But his enthusiasm soon drops as he remembers that Nayu would likely join them for lunch, so he lazily strolls over to their normal spot to eat. The life in his eyes returns as he notices that the flower he gave to Ophelia is the centerpiece of the table. And Amy gleefully adds that the princess even asked Kirsten to apply preservation magic to it. Shauna feels awful about it, so Amy glares back at her, advising her not to talk ill of her master. I love Amy. She's becoming more loyal to our girl. Finally, Ophelia's dreadful meeting is over, and she declines the noble's invitation to a lunch since she intends to eat with her little brother. But talk about timing. Her grandfather, Duke Sicart, heard her lunch plans with her half-brother, something the Duke definitely disapproves of given that he is a direct descendant of the founding line and her blood relative. However, she can't find an excuse to stop talking to the Duke until someone approaches them and interrupts their conversation. Ewout is also patiently waiting for Ophelia, but becomes disappointed that the person who arrives is only Nayu, as Ophelia requested because she has unexpected work to do. Ophelia escaped her grandfather, but now she must deal with the priest and visit the temple. To explain what happened, it was Arsad who interrupted her and Duke Sicart to inform her that the high priest wanted to see her. This is the only way she can get away, so she accepts and leaves with him. They are now on the temple grounds, and Arsad, the gentleman of the Erhard brothers, wraps his cloak around her since the weather is cold. Ophelia knows he probably does it without thinking, and she's not wrong, as he only recently recognized what he's done and blushingly explains that it has no meaning. Then, once he has composed himself, he asks for her hand as he leads her inside the temple. "I'm still looking for the main lead. Is it you, Mr. Innocent-looking handsome guy?" Anyway, they're now inside, and as expected, the high priest is requesting her opinion on the healers. She is tired of dealing with these petty issues, but she understands that the temple and the nobles are on the same side, and if she opposes now, it could ignite a fire when Ewout needs to kill her. However, now that she has the best assassin, now, on her side, she no longer cares and expresses her true feelings and intentions to support the healers. This alarms the high priest, who tell her that this decision will undoubtedly result in an uproar from the nobles, but she's unbothered about what will come of it. Ophelia understands that no matter how much she flatters the nobles, they will eventually abandon her and follow Ewout in the future, so she intends to do what she believes is right: help the healers. As she braces herself for the high priest's judgment, the white-bearded old man surprises her by praising her virtue, and even Arsad backs it up. This isn't what she was hoping for, and her heart races with fear that if she appears to be a good person, they will suspect that she is simply acting. Yet Arsad persists in her disagreement, well aware that she saved Nayu from poverty, which only shows she's really a decent person. Ophelia is so at ease that she asks what's in her tea and discovers that it's a medical tea that can alleviate her exhaustion. Before asking the high priest to leave the room so she can rest, she requests that he send a priest to the imperial palace. The tea reminds her of her hidden feelings about how unfair life is to her, despite the fact that she has done nothing wrong. But she believes that feeling sorry for Ewout and accepting that she deserves death will make her life easier. So she falls asleep with tears in her eyes. All our girl has are pent-up emotions and no one to lean on. After a while, Arsad wakes Ophelia up and escorts her back to the imperial palace. As soon as she returns, her thoughts immediately turn to Ewout since she was unable to join their lunch together. As a result, she makes the decision to go to a location where the children will most likely pass by after they have finished eating. In the original novel, Ewout and Nayu are actually best friends, so she expects to see them chatting and having fun together, but instead, she sees Ewout pass by looking distressed, followed by Nayu, who is shaking in nervousness. Ewout feels bitter that Ophelia isn't taking her word to always eat lunch together seriously. When she approaches him, he feels happy that she hasn't forgotten her promise. Unaware of what is truly going on with Ewout, she unconsciously adds salt to his wounds by appreciating Nayu as his friend and even allowing them to skip class to have fun. Ophelia merely believes that the children had an argument and should speak it out, so she cheerfully invites them to tea together. However, it is clear from their expressions that neither Ewout nor Nayu are enthusiastic about spending time together. After rejecting her invitation on the grounds that he has homework, Ewout storms out in a fit of rage. Nayu, who remains standing and appears so downcast, expresses his view that Ewout is honestly sad, confusing Ophelia as she is certain she did nothing to cause Ewout to be hurt. This little boy of 10 must now explain that he is blocking Ewout and her from getting close because of his presence. Ophelia thinks about it and realizes that Nayu is suggesting that Ewout is jealous, which she finds difficult to believe. So Nayu goes on to say that while they were having lunch together, Ewout pouted, constantly checking the time and patiently waiting for her to come. Then he suggests that Ophelia speak with Ewout, and then, as if he's had enough of these siblings, he says that the decision is hers to make, which makes Ophelia wonder how old this kid is. All of this street living has made this little kid so mature and clever. Ophelia goes to the field for some fresh air and continues to believe that Nayu is mistaken, claiming that Ewout could not possibly be jealous. The fact that things aren't going according to her plans infuriates her. Speaking about one of the anomalies in her plans, Kirsten approaches and offers her a bouquet, which she declines, but instead bluntly asks him why he keeps coming to visit her. Kirsten becomes serious and surprises Ophelia when he asks her to come closer. However, when he asserts, without his customary comedic antics, that he is willing to tell her anything as long as it's whispered, she decides to follow, but only after she warns him not to insult her. Suddenly, the wind becomes so strong that Kirsten has to pull off romantic moves to prevent her from falling before swearing that he will never disrespect her. Because of the tight distance between them, and while Kirsten is wearing a stern expression, Ophelia notices that Kirsten's eye color has changed. But as he is ready to reveal the truth to her, he suddenly stops speaking, as if someone is preventing him and his severe headache forces him to kneel, all the while gripping Ophelia's arm. He doesn't realize that he is already squeezing Ophelia's arm until she screams out in pain, which prompts him to immediately apologize, remark that he might have to inform her the next time, and then snap his finger and poof, he's gone. The fact that Ophelia has never witnessed Kirsten in such an intense state of pain before is only adding to the confusion that she's dealing with at the moment. Should we add him again to the potential main lead list? Afterwards, she goes to check on Ewout and discovers that he is sound asleep. The novel portrays Ewout's upbringing as one of his depressing moments, as if every day were so unbearable that he's like swallowing chunks of ice. For this reason, regardless of whether Nayu's claim that Ewout feels jealousy is true, Ophelia is adamant about keeping her little brother out of her heart. As she runs her fingers over Ewout's hair, memories of her own tragic deaths flood back, making it clear that she could never love him. However, as she prepares to leave, she witnesses Ewout crying in his sleep while calling his mother, which is surprisingly painful for her to see. A new day has begun, and Ewout has finally cracked a smile. This is because he recalls someone brushing his head and believes it was a really pleasant dream because it makes his heart feel so much lighter today. He is on his way to his classroom when he discovers an angel sleeping in the garden. "Girl, why are you sleeping there like you're a painting?" Ophelia appears to be sleeping peacefully, making Ewout anxious that she's dead, so he goes to check on her, but is surprised when she twitches. He falls down and shrieks unintentionally, waking up our beautiful angel, who gets up to ask what happened to him, so he looks down and shyly explains that he was concerned she wasn't breathing. Ophelia changes the subject and brings up Nayu again, pointing out to him that he can express his concerns to the kid, which makes Ewout's heart break again. She recognizes that her comments are hurting Ewout, but she has no intention of comforting him. Instead, she clarifies that she is only proposing that having a friend help ease his pain. Then she confronts her little brother, declaring that she can never be nice to him and that he must not be nice to her either. But it does not change the fact that he is the one person closest to her since he is her brother. This surprises Ewout, as he never thought Ophelia considered him as her brother, but the way she looks now makes him wonder if his sister is also in pain. They are now taking history lessons with Sir Kirsten, who is teaching them about the Empire's long history, including how families who loved one another ended up fighting and how enemies became friends. He then concludes with the lesson that there is more than meets the eye, which really sticks with Ewout and reminds him of how Ophelia constantly appears as if she isn't frightened of anything and can make all the things happen, but like their lesson, he can't help but wonder if she's just hiding her pain. Kirsten then permits the kids to have a snack break, and as they eat, Nayu expresses his amazement at the variety of delicacies that the palace can offer. Kirsten smiles proudly and explains that this is all due to Princess Ophelia's peaceful reign, adding that her management abilities are incredible, as if she is ahead of her time. He is really showing off his crush to her brother. While Nayu is stunned by the princess's greatness, Ewout sits silently and agrees that Ophelia is perfect. But recalling her sleeping face makes him feel as if she will soon disappear, which is shocking because Nayu said it out loud as if he read his mind. When Nayu is unable to elaborate, Ewout cuts him off and says that his sister constantly looks blankly into space. He then wonders if Ophelia has a friend that can help her cope with her pain, so he asks Kirsten if she does. This caught Kirsten off guard to the point that he unconsciously held the papers so slackly that they started flying. Nayu is preoccupied looking at the papers, but Ewout maintains his gaze locked on Kirsten and notices that his eyes get golden as he claims that Ophelia does have a friend, and his name is Isaac Belhaven. I am pretty sure Ophelia has never met Isaac in this life yet. Speaking of Isaac, the High Priest is frantically preventing him from leaving the temple. Isaac is a priest who is now dressed as a plague doctor, which is giving the High Priest headaches. Well, There's an easy way to get the high priest to quit pestering him, so Isaac announces his resignation from the priesthood without thinking. The high priest promptly instructs the temple people to remove Isaac's plague mask, revealing his gorgeous face, and tie his hands so they may speak with less violence. I have a feeling this grumpy brown-haired charming guy might be the main lead. Isaac announced that he now wants to be a healer, which annoys the high priest because he thinks he's unsuitable for the job. However, the high priest knows Isaac will leave the temple after his death, so he requests one final favor by asking him to visit the palace, as Princess Ophelia requested a priest. Isaac despises the palace, but after learning that the princess supports healers and the high priest's advice that, as a potential healer, he should represent and reassure the princess, Isaac can't say no to his dying wish, so he accepts it angrily and departs. The high priest then observes him from behind, noticing his immense divine power, which would make him the ideal next high priest. Anyway, back to Kirsten's class. They finish their test, and Kirsten questions Ewout about whether he truly grasped the term, "there's more to it than meets the eye," which the prince insists he did. But their talk takes a turn for the worse when Kirsten starts to question whether he really absorbed the meaning, so he brings up the rumor about Ophelia killing his mom. Kirsten wants Ewout to fully understand their exam and urges him to spend more time thinking about the rumors he tells him. But Ewout is uninterested because he has been in prison for some time and questions Kirsten about whether it is still part of the test. I believe Kirsten's questions are intended to open Ewout's mind to the possibility that Ophelia isn't responsible for the murder. While it is annoying to hear them debate about psychological issue, Nayu wishes that they would do it when he's not present. Poor kid always in the center of problems. He struggles to live at the palace and makes a strong effort not to interact with any suspected nobles, as described by his brother now in his letter. He feels relieved that, despite his unpredictable temperament, Ewout is beginning to open up to him. Again, unpredictable, today Ewout ignores him, and Nayu thinks he's acting high since he has a princess sister, which is making him remember his brother now, who raised him after their parents died and continues to work hard for him. Nayu is close to crying from missing Now so much, which Philip notices, so he purposely knocks into him to secretly put a chocolate in his pocket. The little kid is so surprised and wonders who put it there, but he eats it anyway, making his older brother Now smile. Nayu is sitting alone on a bench, reflecting on his life at the palace and how things have changed since Kirsten arrived. He observes that Kirsten persists in bothering the princess, and the princess has been actively avoiding him, leaving him with the constant feeling of always being on the edge. This poor child's daily worries! Nayu's peaceful moment is abruptly interrupted by Kirsten's arrival. Being an incredibly perceptive child, Nayu cannot afford to be upset with him because he can sense that Kirsten is also in pain. Then, his teacher smacks him on the head, telling him that based on his test results, it appears that he does not study at all. But Nayu argues that once he leaves the palace, he only needs a basic understanding of math for his daily life. Kirsten is a good teacher, as he still gives Nayu chocolates, which makes him happy, but looking at his teacher now surprises and frightens him, so he quickly runs away. He continues to run, hoping to leave the palace, until he bumps into the princess. They both drop to the ground, but he is so terrified that he tells the princess what he witnessed, claiming that Kirsten is possessed by demons since only demons can alter their eye color. Nayu understands that the princess must be uncomfortable listening to his stories, so he apologizes, which she accepts and teases him about focusing on his studies. Cuties. Nayu then receives his third chocolate today from Ophelia, as she asks him to leave now since Isaac has arrived and they have work to do. Ophelia gives Nayu such a warm smile that the child feels relieved, thinking that her plans might be going smoothly and wishes it will continue. If you only knew, Nayu, if you only knew. Isaac appears genuinely irritated as our girl here introduces herself and extends a warm welcome to the palace. Their matching outfits definitely screams main leads. Ophelia begins by explaining that his mission is to keep the children healthy, but her real objective is to have Isaac make her a paralyzing potion. She has no idea how she would be executed in this life, thus taking that potion will make her feel numb, so she intends to gain Isaac's trust throughout his stay. However, things don't go her way yet, as her smile makes this guy shudder. Since this is their first encounter, Isaac naturally demands to know how Ophelia knew his name. Ophelia quickly reacts, claiming that, as a princess, she ought to know everyone who enters the palace, which he thankfully bites. Observing Isaac's continued lack of trust brings up memories of how talkative and nagging he was to her in the past. They were friends in the past and Kirsten knew that? We need an answer from Mr. Mage. Isaac goes on to examine the two children, and both are smaller than normal children their age. But the moment he cracks his lovely smile and tells the kids to just eat well, rest, and play, they immediately get fond of him. Meanwhile, Ophelia snickers since her plan is working, so it's time for her to ask him to brew the potion. As soon as they exit the room for some private discussion, the maids begin gushing over how Ophelia must be secretly dating Isaac. Well, that's because rumors have circulated that the princess met her lover at the temple, who was actually just Arsad, but everyone now believes it's Isaac. Ewout interrupts the maid, saying it is wrong to discuss Ophelia's love life, and then asks Philip for his opinion because he is always around the princess. Philip casually suggests that Ophelia might be getting married soon, traumatizing the poor child. Just then, Kirsten comes and demands that Philip disclose where to find Ophelia and her reported lover. Well, the two are in the garden arguing, as Isaac believes Ophelia is simply sugarcoating her words when she says she wants a potion, since he believes she wants a potion to kill innocent people. Philip nonchalantly tells Kirsten where to find Ophelia, so Kirsten goes looking for her. However, when Kirsten observes Isaac's refusal to create the princess a potion because he mistook it for poison, he instantly steps up and scolds the priest for disrespecting Ophelia. As he tries to drag Ophelia away, he offers to whip up the potion instead. But he is taken aback when she icily and coldly takes her hand out of his and says he has no business being there as she never asked him to. They are not close in this life, so she fails to understand Kirsten's actions and can't deal with him any longer. That hurts. Kirsten's eyes glow golden again, and she has this theory that since he unexpectedly came to her in this life, he might have returned and remembered his past life. However, if the color shift is proof of return, her eyes should have changed as well. Therefore, her theory is not without flaws. Ophelia walks away as Kirsten asks if he is really someone she can't stand. So she locks eyes with him and in her most frigid display, implying that he is insignificant. After a few days, Philip mentions that Kirsten has been looking gloomy, but Ophelia just instructs him to make sure Kirsten does not approach her again. And guess who showed up? Kirsten is at her door, and her guard is long since gone, so she figures she might as well let him in to apologize. Kirsten expresses regret for his reaction and reveals that he has been compelled to do whatever it takes to support her and dedicate his life to her. This only means that he will not stop pursuing her, which he admits looking so nervous, and he even shares that Arsad scolded him for being immature. This is the first time Ophelia has seen him embarrassed, and just thinking about him being punished makes it even hilarious, so she can't help but giggle quietly. But this did not go unnoticed by Kirsten, and they end up squabbling like an old couple. Can we trust him? They look so adorable together, though. So guys, what do you think of this story so far? Please subscribe and turn on notifications for updates on this and all our other stories, so you can be the first to find out when they're out. Thank you so much for your support. See you in the next one!